From our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., this is the Washington Report with Congressman Nunes. From the Central Valley of California to our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., staying informed with the forces that shape public policy. Here is your host, Congressman Nunes.
Liddy, thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure. You know, I know that you have a couple children that have served over in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know that your son's in the Marines, and so I want to get into that. But first, I want to talk about the situation with the Crocker and Petraeus report, and with that, we're going to play a short clip of that here for just a second.
In describing the recommendations I have made, I should note again that, like Ambassador Crocker, I believe Iraq's problems will require a long-term effort. There are no easy answers or quick solutions, and although we both believe this effort can succeed, it will take time. Our assessments underscore, in fact, the importance of recognizing that a premature drawdown of our forces would likely have devastating consequences.
So, Doctor, after you've seen this clip, and I know you've seen it before, where do you think we're at now in Iraq?
I think we're winning, strangely, unexpectedly. And it's true, the soldiers themselves did not expect it. Our son, for example, who's in Fallujah, had been in the Euphrates Valley a year earlier. And when he came back, he said, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this the way we want to do it. And then he went back about 4 months ago and started emailing us and saying, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And the really good journalists who go there all say the same thing. People who haven't been there for a while go back into Anbar province, and it's peaceful. There has not been a Marine killed in Anbar province now for over 100 days. And there's hardly ever, sniper attacks, IED attacks, anything. So we're winning.
I was there right at the beginning of the surge back in April, May, and then I was just back there in September, and it was just remarkable progress that's been made in Anbar. I think it's really the poster child for how success can look like over in Iraq. But we have a long way to go. But I think you're right. I think if the American people will stand behind and we can be united as a country, we might be able to make some real progress. Hopefully there.
It's funny. This kind of war is determined not so much by the fighting on the ground as by the politics among the people. And the Iraqi people at a certain point made a decision clearly that we were going to win. And they started supporting us, both those who previously had been neutral and those who had been on the other side. They swung to our support. And once that happens, it's really almost impossible for the terrorists to come back.
Right. And well, this is personal to you. I mean, obviously you have a son in the Marines who has served in Anbar. I think this is his second tour. Yeah. You've had a daughter that's actually served over in Iraq for DOD. Right. What are your children saying about being over there?
They feel good right now. They felt bad for a while, and they were very worried, and a lot of their friends were getting killed and wounded and so forth. And now they see all that hard work beginning to pay off, and they just hope that we will stick by them. I mean, they're very distressed by a lot of the stuff that appears on American television and in American newspapers and, alas, in American Congress.
Like when we have leaders in our Senate that go out and say that we've lost the war?
Yeah, premature surrender by United States senators does not win a lot of popularity in the Marine Corps.
Can't agree with you more. When I was over there, I heard the same thing from numerous soldiers who were very disappointed in the conduct of the politicians here in Congress. And quite frankly, it's appalling to me, too. I mean, I don't know how you can win a war without having a united country behind you.
Well, it's a lot easier if the country's united. I mean, we are a fractious country. We've always been a very, very fractious country from the revolution on. I mean, there were a lot of Americans, after all, who opposed the revolution.
So what do you make of the talk that, this additional war going on in Iraq, Afghanistan, and around the world, that this is actually inflaming the terrorists and creating more terrorists? That the longer that we're in Iraq, the more terrorists that seem to pop up all over the world. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I would put it differently. It may come to the same thing, but I would describe it differently. Successful terrorist organizations have to have support from states. They can't do it by themselves, because the things they need are things that only states can provide. Training camps, safe houses, intelligence, ammunition, phony documents, all those things come from states. They don't come from terrorist or organizations in some cave in Afghanistan. I mean, you have to have real state structure to support it. When we first liberated Afghanistan and then went into Iraq, we threatened the big states that support the terrorism all over that region. And the two biggest ones are Syria and Iran, and then secondarily Saudi Arabia. But above all, the Iranians and the Syrians knew that they could not survive if we were successful in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And so they organized this terror war against us, trying desperately to drive us out. And they've said that from the beginning. I mean, that's not secret. They have said publicly that their whole goal is to drive us out of the region, and Iraq is the big place. Iraq is the focal point.
So when you have a member of Congress, like we heard recently, one from New York, and I'll just read a quote here, quote, "Instead of deterring terrorism, our policies are fostering it. America is not safer because of the Iraq war," unquote.
It all depends how it turns out. If we win, and at the moment we're winning, could change, but at the moment we're winning. If we win, it'll really do terrible damage to terrorism worldwide, because this is a messianic movement. Osama bin Laden said publicly that he is a winning horse because of the version of Islam that he embraces and the Islamic practices that he makes all his people carry out, and all these terrible things that they do when they take over towns. You know, no smoking, no drinking, women covered, praying 5 times a day, and all of that. If they win, that's what we'll see all over the region. But if we beat them, then the people in the Middle East will say they're losers, and therefore false messiahs, and therefore both in the area of religion and on the battlefield, people will abandon them. And that's happening now, because a lot of the people in Iraq who are now supporting us and fighting alongside us used to be fighting alongside Al-Qaeda, and they turned.
Well, and you mentioned the women. To me, one of the most appalling things of being over in the Middle East is how the treatment of women in the Middle East is to me, just absolutely appalling.
Oh, all these terrorists are misogynists, just like the Syrians and the Iranians and the Saudis. It's funny how it all comes to the same thing. The biggest threat to them, I think, I agree with you entirely, is the women. And if there are going to be revolutions in these Muslim countries, it's probably going to come from the women.
I think you're right. So if we shift over to Afghanistan, I mean, there was a talk earlier this year there was going to be a big spring offensive and that we were going to be on the run in Afghanistan also. I was just there. I don't believe that to be the case. And so, what do you think about the progress that's being made in Afghanistan so far?
Well, we depend a lot on NATO allies in Afghanistan. It's not so much American forces as German, Italian, Spanish, British, so forth, all over the country. They have not been as effective as we had been in Afghanistan. And so there's a bit of sliding, particularly in western Afghanistan, near the Iranian border, and then down to the south, along with Pakistan. And a lot of what's going on in Pakistan is a result of that. But you're right, the spring offensive did not happen, and now we're getting into winter, and winter is our time of year. Winter is what we like to fight in.
And it's amazing how, they said there was going to be a spring offensive, but it never gets reported that the spring offensive never happened. I just think it's a shame that the news media is not reporting things that they should be over there. Just quickly, and we're going to finish up here, but the situation in Pakistan today, with Musharraf.
Terrifying. It's terrifying. Because above all things, what we do not want is a radical Islamic state with nuclear weapons. Pakistan has nuclear weapons right now, and they're being threatened by a radical Islamic movement. And I don't know the answer to Pakistan.
What's happening is we're chasing Al-Qaeda and the terrorists out of Afghanistan, and they're running into this tribal region in Pakistan. And it's really a tribal region. It's not a real part of Pakistan. It's an area that's been uncontrolled for a millennium. So when you look at that, it's critical that we have cooperation with Pakistan and Musharraf, not only because of the nuclear weapons, but also because of trying to squeeze Al-Qaeda out between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens there over the next few months. But I really appreciate your time for you to come in here and take time to talk with us today. And please, we all pray for your son and daughter that are over in the Middle East, and we pray that they'll come back safely.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.